Most men spend their entire lives choosing women who slowly destroy their souls, settling for relationships that feel like slow poison because they never learned what Friedrich Nietzsche understood about the difference between love that elevates and love that diminishes. You keep attracting the same type of woman, the one who makes you feel small, who criticizes your dreams, who turns your strength into weakness, and you tell yourself this is just how relationships work. But Nietzsche saw through this lie over a century ago. He understood that most people are spiritual peasants who choose partners from weakness rather than strength, who mistake neediness for love and comfort for growth, and he left behind a blueprint for the kind of man who attracts a completely different caliber of woman. The insights you are about to discover will shatter everything you thought you knew about attraction, compatibility, and what it means to choose a partner who amplifies your power rather than feeding on your insecurities. Because when you understand what Nietzsche taught about the aristocracy of the soul, you will never again settle for a woman who makes you apologize for being who you are. Nietzsche understood that humanity divides into two distinct classes, not by wealth or status, but by the quality of their inner life. The aristocrats of the soul create their own values, live by their own standards, and refuse to be diminished by the mediocrity that surrounds them. The spiritual peasants, however, live entirely through the opinions of others, seeking constant validation and approval, never developing an authentic relationship with themselves. When you choose a woman, you are choosing someone who will either elevate your spiritual aristocracy or drag you down into the peasant mindset. Most men make this choice unconsciously, drawn to women who flatter their ego or provide easy comfort, never realizing they are selecting a partner who will keep them spiritually small. The aristocratic man recognizes that his companion must share his commitment to excellence, his willingness to face uncomfortable truths, and his refusal to live by borrowed values. This is why so many relationships fail before they truly begin. Two spiritual peasants create a relationship of mutual diminishment, constantly seeking validation from each other while avoiding the hard work of personal growth. But when an aristocratic soul chooses another aristocratic soul, something magnificent emerges, a partnership that transcends the ordinary and creates new possibilities for both individuals. The question becomes not whether she likes you, but whether she possesses the inner nobility to walk beside you on the path of becoming. Nietzsche saw that conventional morality castrates authentic human connection by forcing relationships into predetermined molds of right and wrong. When you approach a woman with the baggage of societal expectations about how relationships should unfold, you kill the possibility of discovering what could naturally emerge between two free spirits. The modern man has been conditioned to judge every interaction through the lens of moral categories that have nothing to do with genuine attraction or compatibility. Most relationship advice operates from this slave morality framework, teaching men to be nice, respectful, and accommodating in ways that guarantee mediocrity. But authentic attraction exists beyond these artificial moral boundaries, in the realm where two individuals meet as complete beings rather than as performers following social scripts. The woman worth choosing will respond to your authentic self, not to your carefully constructed moral persona that seeks approval rather than connection. When you move beyond good and evil in relationships, you discover that genuine chemistry emerges from the collision of two authentic natures, not from following predetermined rules about proper behavior. This does not mean becoming immoral or disrespectful, but rather creating your own values based on what actually serves the highest potential of both individuals. The aristocratic approach to relationships requires you to abandon the safety of conventional moral judgments and trust your own discernment about what creates genuine intimacy and mutual growth. Nietzsche's doctrine of eternal return forces you To confront the ultimate question about any relationship, if you had to live this exact same life with this exact same woman for eternity, would you embrace it with joy or shrink away in horror? This is not about perfection or the absence of conflict, but about whether the fundamental dynamic between you creates more life or drains it away. Most men avoid this question because they know the answer would terrify them. The eternal return. Test cuts through all the comfortable lies you tell yourself about settling for less than what your soul truly desires. When you imagine reliving every conversation, every moment of intimacy, every conflict and reconciliation with this woman, across infinite lifetimes, your body will give you the truth that your mind has been avoiding. If the thought fills you with dread or resignation, you are choosing from weakness rather than strength, from convenience rather than authentic desire. The woman who passes the eternal return test is one whose presence in your life amplifies rather than diminishes your essential nature. She brings out qualities in you that you respect, challenges you in ways that create growth rather than resentment, and shares a vision of life that makes you eager to wake up each morning. This is not about finding someone without flaws, but about choosing someone whose flaws and strengths create a dynamic that you would willingly embrace across eternity because it serves your highest becoming. Nietzsche distinguished between two fundamental approaches to life: the master morality that creates values from inner strength and the slave morality that defines itself through resentment and external validation. In relationships, this distinction becomes the difference between choosing a partner who joins you in creating something magnificent and choosing someone who merely validates your existing insecurities. The master chooses from abundance, while the slave chooses from need. A woman operating from slave morality will constantly seek to diminish your strength because it threatens her sense of security. She needs you to be smaller so she can feel bigger. She judges everything through the lens of what others think, measures success by external standards, and approaches the relationship as a transaction where she gives affection in exchange for security or status. The man who chooses such a woman inevitably finds himself pulled into the same dynamic of resentment and diminishment. The woman with master morality, however, celebrates your strength because she possesses her own. She creates her own values, rather than borrowing them from society, and she approaches the relationship as an opportunity for mutual elevation rather than mutual validation. Together, you become creators of new possibilities rather than prisoners of old patterns. This is the difference between a relationship that serves life and one that serves fear, between choosing someone who amplifies your power and choosing someone who feeds on your weakness. Nietzsche understood that the will to power is not about domination over others, but about the relentless drive to become who you are meant to be, to actualize your highest potential without compromise. In relationships, this principle reveals why authentic feminine energy is naturally drawn to men who embody this inner strength. Not the performative aggression that insecure men mistake for power, but the quiet certainty of a man who knows his own worth and direction. When you operate from genuine will to power, you become a magnet for women who possess the same quality in their own feminine expression. These women do not seek to be completed by a man, but to dance with someone whose strength matches their own depth and complexity. They are repelled by neediness, manipulation, and the desperate energy of men who have not yet learned to generate their own sense of purpose and value from within. The counterfeit version of strength that most men display actually betrays deep weakness. The need to prove themselves through external validation, to control others because they cannot control themselves, to demand respect rather than naturally commanding it. Genuine feminine energy recognizes this immediately and withdraws, not out of cruelty, but out of wisdom. The woman worth choosing will only be attracted to the real thing, to a man whose power flows from self-mastery rather than the need to master others, whose strength serves creation rather than destruction. Nietzsche's concept of amor fati, loving your fate, demands that you embrace every aspect of your existence with such completeness that you would choose it again without hesitation. When applied to relationships, this principle becomes a ruthless filter for determining whether a woman belongs in your life. Does her presence make you more grateful for your destiny, or does it fill you with regret about the path you have chosen? Most men choose partners who offer temporary comfort but long-term diminishment, women who make them feel safe in the moment but gradually erode their connection to their own purpose and potential. They settle for relationships that require them to apologize for their ambitions, hide their true nature, or sacrifice their growth for the sake of keeping peace. This is the opposite of amor fati. It is choosing someone who makes you resent your own life. The woman who enhances your destiny is one whose presence in your life makes you more grateful to be exactly who you are, walking exactly the path you have chosen. She does not try to reshape you into her vision of who you should be, but instead amplifies the qualities that make you most authentically yourself. With her, you find yourself saying yes to life more completely, embracing challenges with greater enthusiasm, and feeling more connected to your own purpose. This is how you know you have chosen correctly, when her love makes you love your own fate more deeply. Nietzsche's Übermensch represents the man who has transcended the conventional limitations of his culture and era, creating his own values and living by his own vision rather than the inherited beliefs of the masses. Such a man cannot find fulfillment with a woman who remains trapped in conventional thinking, who measures herself and others by the standards of the crowd, who fears the very freedom that he has fought to achieve. The ordinary woman, no matter how beautiful or kind, will eventually feel threatened by the Übermensch, because his very existence challenges the comfortable assumptions by which she lives. She will unconsciously work to pull him back into conventional patterns, not out of malice, but out of her own need for security within familiar structures. This creates an inevitable tension that drains both individuals. She feels inadequate, and he feels constrained. The woman worthy of the Übermensch is one who has undertaken her own journey of transcendence, who has questioned the assumptions of her culture and created her own relationship with truth and meaning. She does not fear his intensity because she possesses her own. She does not shrink from his vision because she has her own vision to pursue. Together, they become co-creators of new possibilities rather than prisoners of old patterns, each supporting the other's continuous becoming rather than demanding that they remain fixed and predictable. Nietzsche identified two fundamental forces. In human nature, the Dionysian representing wild creativity and authentic passion, and the Apollonian representing order, beauty, and measured perfection. In women, this distinction reveals itself as the difference between those who live from their authentic core and those who have crafted themselves into what they believe others want to see. The Dionysian woman is messy, real, and alive, while the Apollonian woman is polished, controlled, and often empty beneath the surface. Most men are initially drawn to Apollonian women because they appear to have everything under control. They present themselves as the perfect package with no rough edges or uncomfortable truths. But this perfection is often a mask that conceals a deep disconnection from genuine feeling and spontaneous life. These women have learned to perform femininity rather than embody it, creating relationships that feel more like business transactions than authentic human connections. The Dionysian woman, however, brings both chaos and creation into your life. She is unafraid of her own depths and therefore unafraid of yours. She may challenge you more, disturb your peace more, but she also awakens more life in you because she herself is fully alive. She has not sacrificed her wild nature on the altar of social acceptability, and this wildness calls forth your own authentic masculine response. The choice between these two types of women is ultimately the choice between safety and aliveness, between the predictable and the transformative. Nietzsche proclaimed that God is dead, meaning that the traditional sources of moral authority and social structure have lost their power to guide human behavior in the modern world. In relationships, this death of external authority means you can no longer rely on inherited scripts about how men and women should relate to each other. You must create your own values and standards based on what actually serves life and growth, rather than what tradition dictates. The collapse of traditional relationship structures has left most people wandering in confusion, trying to navigate intimacy without a compass, alternating between outdated gender roles that no longer fit and progressive ideologies that often deny fundamental truths about masculine and feminine nature. This confusion creates relationships built on constantly shifting ground, where no one knows what to expect from anyone else, because there are no shared standards or clear agreements about what partnership actually means. The aristocratic man uses this collapse as an opportunity rather than a crisis, recognizing that he now has the freedom to create relationships based on his own deepest understanding of what serves mutual flourishing. He develops his own criteria for choosing a partner, his own vision of what authentic partnership looks like, and his own standards for how two people can support each other's highest becoming. This requires courage, because you must trust your own judgment rather than hiding behind social conventions, but it also creates the possibility for relationships that transcend anything the traditional world ever offered. Nietzsche's fundamental challenge to become who you are takes on profound significance in the context of intimate relationships, because the woman you choose will either catalyze your transformation into your highest self or keep you imprisoned in patterns that prevent your authentic emergence. Most men unconsciously choose partners who allow them to remain comfortable in their limitations, who never challenge them to grow beyond their current level of development. The wrong woman functions like a comfortable prison. She accepts your weaknesses as permanent features rather than temporary obstacles. She enables your excuses rather than inspiring your excellence, and she creates an environment where your potential slowly dies from lack of challenge and stimulation. With such a woman, you find yourself becoming smaller over time, more predictable, more resigned to mediocrity, because the relationship rewards stagnation rather than growth. The right woman, however, becomes a mirror that reflects back your unrealized possibilities. She sees who you could become, even when you have forgotten it yourself, and her presence in your life creates a natural pressure toward excellence that feels supportive rather than burdensome. She does not try to change you through criticism or manipulation, but her own commitment to growth creates an environment where your highest qualities naturally emerge. With her, you discover capabilities you never knew you possessed, because authentic love has the power to call forth the best in human nature, rather than settling for what already exists. The question that will change everything is this: are you choosing women who celebrate your strength, or women who need you to be weak so they can feel safe? Look at your past relationships honestly. See the pattern that has been running your life, and ask yourself whether you have been settling for spiritual peasants when you could be attracting an aristocrat of the soul. Share in the comments below what you discovered about yourself after watching this video, because your insights might be exactly what another man needs to hear to break free from his own patterns of choosing poorly. If this opened your eyes to truths you have been avoiding, subscribe to this channel now, because we are just getting started on the journey of becoming the kind of man who naturally attracts the woman he truly deserves.